With our next Hall of Famer, I'd like to tell you just a little bit of a story here of how I met George. 5 years ago during COVID, we didn't play any sports. And so as an SID, I was a little perplexed and wondering how in the world am I going to do my gig if we're not playing games. So Matt Foster, who was our coach, football coach at the time, gave me a suggestion, and he said, "Hey, Mark, what you should do or what you need to do is get on the horn and visit with George Hawthorne." I briefly knew who he was. I figured he played football, but Matt was pretty, he said, "Hey, look, I think you'd get a kick out of visiting with him." So set it up. This was the first Zoom interview that I'd ever done, so that was kind of cool. So I met with George over the Zoom, and he was at his home in Phoenix. And wow, what a story. What a story he told me. He said, "Mark, I grew up in Chicago, and I could have gone both ways. I was at literally a fork in the road." And he decided to go to school at COD, changed his life, wrestled, All-American football player, played with great guys like Bellamy. Used that opportunity to then go to the University of Iowa and play for Hayden Fry. He was there 3 years, redshirted year, played 2. Offensive lineman. He also wrestled. Didn't wrestle on the team, but Dan Gable knew that he was a dude and he needed a practice wrestler. He more than held up his own. Then he turned around and had opportunities, training camp in Cleveland with some unbelievable coaches that he'll share with you. Got his degree, moved to Phoenix, made a unbelievable career in law enforcement in Maricopa County. And he's going to share that story with you tonight, and it's going to blow you away. When he was living in Phoenix, the University of Iowa played a bowl game. It wasn't the Fiesta Bowl, but it was played down at Chase Field. And I remember reading a story in the Iowa Publicity. It said something along the lines of this. The lead was, "It's doubtful that any of the Iowa Hawkeyes knew who George Hawthorne was before today." The next paragraph then said, "But it's almost a sure thing that they'll never forget George Hawthorne." NJCAA Hall of Famer George Hawthorne played 2 seasons as an offensive lineman for fellow Hall of Famer Bob MacDougall's storied football teams in 85 and 86. He earned first-team All-American honors in 86 and went on to play his seasons at Iowa. He spent 2 preseason camps with the Cleveland Browns and also played 1 season of Arena League football with the Arizona Rattlers. The Chicago native also competed for 2 seasons at heavyweight for the Shaps wrestling program, qualifying both years for the NJCAA championships that were held right here at COD.
Hello, my name is Jerry Gerbig. I am proud and humbled to present to you tonight George Hawthorne for his induction into the College of DuPage Athletics Hall of Fame. George and I met in the summer of 1985. George was a last-minute addition to the roster. My roommate at the time convinced me to go get some ice cream, and he volunteered to drive, which I knew something was up, should have known something was up at that point. And before I knew it, we were pulling into the College of DuPage athletics facility, where Coach Mack put us through some drills in the weight room. I met George when we bumped heads doing log rolls. It's pretty hard hit. And years later around the fire, we kind of remembered that time, and we both said, "Boy, we thought that guy was tough, but we weren't going to show how much pain we were in." Another story from our freshman year, I guess, that it's a pretty legendary story about George, is at the beginning of the season, we would max. And so we would do different weightlifting exercises to see how much we had improved. So for instance, bench press, squats, things of that nature. Unfortunately for George, he was paired with the lineman, and I'm not sure that Schurz had any weightlifting equipment at that high school. But immediately the coaches intervened and removed George from the maxing with the lineman and had him wait out in the hallway with the receivers. If you look at George today, it's hard to believe that happened, but as legend has it, that was some of George's humbling beginnings there at College of DuPage. I spoke about Coach Mack earlier. Unfortunately, I know he would love to be here, but he's not able to. Being the teammate that George was, and and is. There's some people that I'm sure would be here had they not passed in the last few years. Specifically, Russ Ball, who was the bookend offensive tackle to George our freshman year. Al Els, the bookend offensive tackle to George our sophomore year. Steve Clements, offensive guard from the Indianapolis area. Ronnie Westmoreland from Indianapolis, as well as Buck Small from Indianapolis, and Chad Kramel, one of the great College of DuPage defensive tackles. George came to College of DuPage in a last-minute decision. He decided to forego his brief Hollywood career, where he starred in a non-speaking role in the movie Wildcats, filmed at Schurz High School. Some of his counterparts in that unforgettable movie were Goldie Hawn, Nipsey Russell, Woody Harrelson, and Ice Cube. I think George made a good decision. I'm sure he would do great in film, but we were super happy to have him at College of DuPage, and he made a big difference on the offensive line for sure. Thinking of George, one of the quotes from Tony Dungy that I think most represents George would be, an offensive lineman doesn't play for stats or glory. He plays for the guy next to him and the team behind him. That's real character. And that, in a nutshell, is George Hawthorne. At DuPage in the 85 and 86 seasons, we ran the football. Our biggest rivals were Triton, Harper, Illinois Valley. We had scores 9-3, 6-3, 3-0, 14-7. We didn't throw the ball a lot. We had fantastic receivers. Mike Bellamy comes to mind, Jerry Blue, Steve Caney, real good. Didn't drop passes, got open, scored, etc. But we were going to run between the tackles, control the ball, run the clock. And having a guy like George on the right side or left side of the offensive line, he controlled the line of scrimmage and is one of the big reasons we were successful, especially our sophomore year. We just ran the ball down people's throats. And by the end of the game, we were controlling the clock. And if they didn't have the ball, they couldn't score. So big part of our success was what George did up front for the DuPage Chaparrals. Now, unfortunately for me, I got to practice with George, being in the same position group as George. It made me a better football player, but boy, there were days when George wasn't in the best mood. And luckily we were able to hold bags, so it wasn't always body-to-body contact, but George came to practice to work. George did not take practice plays off, nor did he take game plays off. He had an incredible work ethic, still does, and that foundation was definitely laid in Glen Ellen under the guidance of Coach Mack. Now from DuPage, George went on to play for Iowa. He played for the legendary Hayden Fry. His position coach was Kurt Ferentz, who's now Iowa's head coach. Did a great job at Iowa, starting tackle at Iowa. Went on from Iowa to play for the Arizona Rattlers in the Arena League after a cup of coffee with the Cleveland Browns in preseason. So George continued to be an outstanding football player after he left DuPage. In addition to playing football at Iowa and for the Arizona Rattlers, he was also part of the coaching staff of the Arizona Cardinals. And from there, he went on to coach various high school teams in the Phoenix area. Very successful, great coach. I had the opportunity firsthand to watch him in action, and he ran the football, which that's something, again, that we learned at College of DuPage. In addition to that, George was a really, really good wrestler at DuPage, went on to wrestle at Iowa, and Iowa wrestling is no slouch, but there weren't many heavy guys on the College of DuPage wrestling team at that time. So George asked me to come and work with him in the wrestling room. And that was another bad decision on my part. George was one hell of a wrestler. George did it all at College of DuPage. George and I have stayed in touch over the years, as he has with many of our teammates. You can't ask for a better guy than George. I watch his interaction with Coach Roman. He looks out for Coach Roman. Him and Coach Roman have a great relationship. I've seen them travel together to DuPage events. I've seen Coach Roman at George's games when he was coaching in high school. I think that's just fantastic. I mean, that shows the level of appreciation George has for his elders. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my teammate, friend, and brother, George Hawthorne, and recognize him for his induction into the College of DuPage Athletic Hall of Fame.
NJCAA Hall of Famer George Hawthorne played 2 seasons, 1985 and 1986, as an offensive lineman for fellow Hall of Famer Bob MacDougall's storied football teams. He earned first-team All-American honors in 1986 and went on to play 2 seasons at the University of Iowa. He spent 2 preseason camps with the Cleveland Browns and also played 1 season of Arena League football with the Arizona Rattlers. The Chicago native also competed for 2 seasons at heavyweight for the Chaparrals wrestling program, qualifying both years for the NJCAA championship held at COD. Please welcome to the stage, George Hawthorne.
I would like to tell you that I prepared a great speech for you guys today, but I didn't. And there's a reason. Because if I prepared a speech, then you guys would only be surprised. But I wanted to be surprised too. It'd take half the mystery away from it. But I'm gonna tell you something, man. First, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee and the current board of trustees and all of the executives or the people at COD that make things happen. And I'm gonna tell you why I'm thanking them. I'm not thanking them for my past performances, but I'm thanking them for our future. I live in Arizona, as has been said, and every school, every junior college in Arizona has dropped their football programs. I coached with Coach Roman, that's where I started my coaching career, at one of the junior colleges out there. And I do know how important it is for young men to get that opportunity to go on and do something special. And the College of DuPage is the only remaining school in Illinois, junior college school in Illinois, that plays football. I'm gonna tell you something, that's huge. So the administration at the College of DuPage needs to be applauded. People like Walter I went to a national championship game, me and some of my teammates, a couple years ago, and Walter was there in attendance. You know, he wasn't there for the whole game because he had to go over and support North Central where he used to work. That's how dedicated he is to athletics. I'm gonna tell you, athletics, the reason athletics started, especially football, because in time of war, it made men. So they found out that people that participated in football made better soldiers. They made better leaders. They made better co-soldiers. They found that to be true. So the government started subsidizing athletics. And they spread it out to all athletics. That was the start of it. So again, College of DuPage needs to be commended for keeping football going. I know that has absolutely nothing to do with me, but it has absolutely everything to do with me. Because without College of DuPage, I would be a totally different person. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and I don't know if you guys are aware of the west side of Chicago. It's the Austin community. At one time, it was considered one of the most dangerous, deadly communities in America. And fortunately, when I grew up, guns weren't that popular then. It was harder to get a gun. But gangs were very popular, very, very popular. And growing up, I had big problems with them. I had only sisters. I had 5 sisters. And listen, my sisters were tough. At least I can say 2 of them were tough, you know. And I know that if I'd have went home and told them I was having problems, they'd have fought. They would have fought, 2 of them. But I wouldn't go home. I'd just deal with my problems myself. I did get fast living in that community because If a group's coming, I'm like, 1, 2, nope, I'm out. You know, and so I came to college at DuPage running about a 4.8 40-yard dash, which 4.9, which is amazing for somebody my size. And that's absolutely factual. But before I got to the College of DuPage, I played at Schurz High School. I got a couple teammates back there, Paul and Joe Ramirez, that came from Schurz High School to watch me today. When we got to Schurz, I had never played organized football because it was difficult in my community to play organized football because there was none. When you're in a gang-infested community, park districts that didn't have football. So there was no football for me to play. So when I went to Schurz High School, you know, first day of practice, we didn't know how to put on the girdle. We had to go to people like Paul and John and say, how do you do this? Because they were fortunate enough to have played football. So I thought that little butt pad, which they don't really make anymore, went in the front. And so did most of my teammates, right? We went out to the field with our knee pads on backwards because we had no idea how they went. They were backwards and upside down. And again, fortunately, we had great teammates that guided us in the right direction. And that was my start of athletics. My first organized athletics, I was 13 years old, little fat, pudgy guy. I wasn't little, I was still 6'2". But, you know, a pudgy guy, not very strong. You know, played my 4 years at Schurz High School, had two great coaches, Frank Prio and Ray Smith. May Ray Smith rest in peace. You know, I learned mental and physical toughness there. I learned to be tough. With my wrestling program at Schurz, my freshman year, you know, I was a 13-year-old pudgy little kid. You just got to remember that. I was 6'2", but I was still pudgy, right? Maybe 6'1", I don't know. So we go out after football season ends. We go out to wrestle. And I'm going up against Gordon Tech, right? This guy's ranked #1 in the state. He's 18 years old. I'm 13, right? I wish I could get a mustache. I couldn't even get a milk mustache yet, you know? So I wrestle against this guy. He pins me in about, this is Amundsen High School. This guy had hair coming out of his singlet on his chest, right? And remember, I couldn't grow a milk mustache. He had hair coming out of his singlet on his chest. And I'm like, man, I'm wrestling that grown man, right? And heavyweights go last, which is really, really scary because you watched everybody else wrestle, right? My coach comes to me and he says, hey, George, you know what? All you got to do is not get pinned and we win. And I'm like, that's it? Now, remember, I've been in the wrestling room now probably for a couple weeks, and every person in that wrestling room could beat me, right? And the weight started at 98 pounds, right? And I'm like 240, 250. But the 98-pounder could beat me wrestling. But anyway, he says, all you got to do is not get pinned. So I watch all their matches, and my match comes up, and people in the stands started stomping on the. It gets louder and louder, louder and louder in the arena. Everybody in the arena stomping because this is an away match. And they started chanting, Moose, 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 Moose. That was this guy's nickname, right? And I'm getting ready to wrestle against Moose. And I'm like, holy smokes, I bet you I went out there. I got pinned in, and I'm telling you, it wasn't quick enough, however long it was, but it was probably 10, 15 seconds, right? I get pinned by Moose. And Moose he's got a big old fat belly. I hadn't grown one yet, but Moose had a big old fat belly, and he had that on my face. I couldn't breathe. I literally thought I was gonna die, right? I didn't know what else to do. I bit Moose as hard as I could, right? I got my shoulders pinned to the mat and bit Moose as hard as I could. Anyway, Moose gets up screaming. The referee finally hits the mat. I don't know what took him freaking so long. My shoulder's been on the mat probably for 10 minutes, in my opinion, right? A lot of breath not taken. And so finally he hits the mat. Okay, I'm pinned. Thank God. I'm crying. I get up crying. And this was the first heroic thing I've had from a coach. I get up crying, and this is in the middle of an arena, right? To me, it's a packed house. It's like playing at the United Center in front of everybody. Of course, it wasn't like that, but it was still pretty crowded for a 13-year-old that's never been in anything like that. My coach comes onto the mat, middle of the mat when I'm crying. I'm sobbing like a baby. I'm 13. I'm the youngest of 5 sisters, right? I ain't got no brothers to toughen me up, right? I'm the youngest of 5. I'm the only boy. I got 5 sisters ahead of me. Anyway, I'm crying on the mat. My sister, my my sister that's right above me, she went to that school, and she's crying in the stands. And so I'm crying, and the coach comes up to the wrestling mat. He puts his arm around me, and he says, son, it's going to be okay. He walks me off the mat, you know, and he could have ruined me right at that time as an athlete by telling me, man up, men don't cry in this sport. This is wrestling. Men don't cry. He could have done that, but he didn't. You know, he saw how vulnerable I was, so he walked me off the mat with his arm around me. Next match was against that number one guy in the state. I can't remember his name, Gordon Tech, number one guy in the state. He was built like I don't know what, right? I mean, it was crazy. I'm like, holy crap, what that guy do, eat weights? You know, even though I didn't know nothing about weights then, but anyway, coach forfeited that match, thank God. and the next day, he replaced me with a baseball player who was a freaking man-child. His name was Bobby Mays. He replaced me with Bobby Mays, and I was grateful for that because I was 13, you know, and these guys were 18 and 19. Anyway, so Bobby wrestled the rest of that season. So that's the start of my athletic career, and I tell you that to tell you the things I'm going to get into. After high school, I get a scholarship to Northeastern Illinois University. Anybody know Northeastern yet? Nobody. I'm sorry you guys know it. It ain't very many people that know it, right? So I'm 17 now, and I'm still a fat, pudgy kid because, as Jerry said, there was no weights at my high school. I wrestled, so I was kind of, I had gotten strong from wrestling, and I did end up being a starter later in, my senior year, and I did well, went downstate and wrestled. But anyway, I'm going to keep this to 5 minutes, I promise. I promise, folks. I'm getting to the good stuff. Later in my career, Northeastern gives me a scholarship, right? I think it's like books or something, because it was an NAIA school. They couldn't really give much. So I think they were paying for my books. Well, my father was born in 1918. He didn't get to play organized sports in South Carolina. My mother was born in Georgia in 1933. Again, if you know and understand those little small communities, they probably didn't even have a football team. But they knew nothing about athletics or football. So they just knew I was getting a scholarship. Somebody was going to give some money. So this guy at Northeastern, wanted me to go there. Well, I had taken a visit once to the University of Illinois because I had a great high school football teammate, James Maribel, that had gotten a scholarship the year before. Now, understand, my freshman, sophomore, until the end of my junior year, I didn't know there was such thing as a football scholarship. I didn't know you could play, other than the NFL, I didn't know you could play football beyond college, beyond high school. So Northeastern, after James gets there, they ask him, is there anybody else at your school that we should be looking at? So he said, yeah, George Hawthorne. So Al Moldy, who was the Eastern Illinois football coach at the time, comes and recruits me. They give me an official visit to Eastern Illinois. Well, unfortunately for me, that was the year of Prop 48. Prop 48 is what we're all under now. And that's, you have to have a certain GPA, and you have to do well enough on the ACT, SAT to be able to go and do that, to go and play. Well, I didn't have either. I didn't take the SAT. I was totally terrified of that, and I'm still terrified of it, So I didn't take that test, and anyway, I didn't have the 2.0. So I'm at Northeastern practicing, right? I'm 17, still don't have chest hair. I'm the starting offensive tackle for Northeastern Illinois in that summer. We're practicing in a parking lot with parking blocks. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not joking. We're practicing in a parking lot. Now, it's not a dirt parking lot. It's a asphalt parking lot. So I go to practice a couple days. Then I get a call from a guy. Hello, this is Bob MacDougall, College of DuPage. I was told by Al Moldy that you're making a mistake by going over to Northeastern Illinois. We want you to come over here to College of DuPage and take a visit. So I come to College of DuPage, and I take a visit to the college. It was the most beautiful facility I've ever seen in my life. In my opinion, it was way better than Eastern Illinois, because that's the only thing I got to compare it to. I went to camp to Illinois a couple years, but it was way better than Eastern Illinois. And Coach MacDougall was a freaking outstanding person. And I'm like, you know what, this is the place for me. This is the place for me. So I go, I leave Northeastern, I go to College of DuPage. I tell the coach I'm going to College of DuPage. That coach from Northeastern calls me every day threatening me, saying, hey, you can't play football. You signed a contract with us. You can't play football any place if you don't play here. He was calling me every day. I tell Coach, I go to Coach MacDougall's office, second floor right over the gym. I say, Coach, I can't come here. And I'm almost in tears, or maybe I am in tears. I was pretty soft. I say, Coach, I can't come here. He's like, why not? Well, this coach over at Northeastern said if I go here, I'd never be able to play football again. He gets on the telephone with the guy right then while I'm in his office. And he says, hey, look, you stop lying to this kid and you leave this kid alone. You know he's making the right decision for himself. Let the kid do what's right for him. That's the day that my hero in Bob MacDougall was born, because he defended me when I could not defend myself. That's the day that my hero was born. So I never got another call from that guy from Northeastern, from whatever Eastern, whatever school that was. Never got another call from him because my hero stepped in. So then I'm 15. Jerry didn't explain that because I came in late. He did say I was late. I came in late, so I was like 15. It was like 5 lines in front of me. Anyway, I get a little bit of time in the first game, I move up. Second game, I move up. By the third game, I'm first team. And I never looked back, and it was pretty awesome. Kerr's here. Three of my line people were here, Kerr and Gerbic, and unfortunately, Russ Ball passed away. Hagedorn couldn't be here today, but that was the 5 of us. Mike Bellamy was the starting receiver. He had no idea yet either. He hadn't figured it out, and Steve Caney was one of the starting receivers. He always thinks he has an idea, still does. So that was our team. We had some great teammates that year. The next year we go to the R.C. Kohler Bowl. Coach MacDougall was my offensive line coach. He referred to us as freaking pig suckers. We liked it. It was a good name for us. But that was my hero. He did everything for me in those 2 years. I'm going to tell you what, they played racquetball with Barry Alvarez every day to talk them into taking me to Iowa. They had to talk them into it because Iowa didn't take many junior college transfers at that time. So they played racquetball, handball actually, every day with him to talk him into taking me. And Coach Ferentz, who's still a mentor and friend of mine, says that he had no choice because they left him no choice but to take me. And he said it was one of the greatest decisions he's ever made, and I do appreciate that. But that's a little story about what College of DuPage has meant to me and what Coach MacDougall has meant to me and Coach Roman has meant to me. Now, fast forward to 1999 when I finished playing for the Arizona Rattlers. And at this time, I was already in the sheriff's office. I was a sergeant now. And I asked Coach Roman, I'm tired of playing football. I'm done. And I asked Coach Roman, I said, hey, what should I do? I'm tired of playing. He said, you should coach. I said, is it as good as playing? He's like, it's way better because you affect more people. So I got into coaching. It was absolutely freaking outstanding. And I coached with Coach Roman. And if you guys knew Coach Roman, and I wish he was here, he's very colorful. You see some of the pictures up there, him looking mean. Everybody was afraid of him. I didn't even play I was offense, and he was defense, and I was scared of him. And he was the same way later when I coached for him. So he got me into coaching, which I've had the opportunity since '99 to affect lots and lots of young men. And now they're really great young men. One of them's here today, Carl Crawford. I coached him when he was 19. And Carl went on to coach a whole bunch of different high schools, had a lot of success. He's now at Lake Forest College. After coaching him, after bringing him on to Chandler High School where we won state championships, many of them, Carl then coached my son. So how about that? You coach somebody and you train them up the right way, and then they coach your kid. That is absolutely freaking outstanding. That's the impact that coaching has, and that's why we do it, because we bring up great people. When I see the kids that I've coached, and I swear I'm almost done. When I see the kids that I coached, I am so proud of them they've all come up, most of them have come up to be great young men, just great young men. And that's why, again, College of DuPage and you guys keeping this program going means everything to me. Because, again, you guys have seen it throughout the country, people dropping programs. Well, it means a lot. Not just the Hall of Fame a lot, it means a lot for George Hawthorne, a person, and I know that it's not just me. As again, Carl Crawford wouldn't be the person he was, and I wouldn't have met, I wouldn't have had the impact in the sheriff's office I had in the community of Arizona that I've had without the College of DuPage. So I'm so sorry if I took a lot of your time. I wish Coach Roman could be here. That's my guy. He's everything to me. He's everything. And Coach MacDougall has pushed for me to be in this hall since the induction. He's pushed every induction year for me to be here. He called me and asked me more questions about myself. He pushed. And when he died, Walter and Pat Rubal then continued the push and continued to be his voice, and I really appreciate that about those guys. So anyway, thank you guys. I don't know if I talked anything about football. I'm so sorry if I didn't. I got a couple teammates. I got a lot of teammates out there, but them two linebackers over there, I look at them and I remember having to go and hit them and get headaches. I wouldn't tell them because that would weaken me. That's, Chris and JJ, man, those guys was tough, man. And they taught me a whole bunch of mental toughness. And Graziano, he O'Hare Trucking, he owns the O'Hare Tow Company. Man, that guy, and he owned it then, right? Him and his father owned it then. And he was, at the time, I think 22. This guy used to lift tires like this. I'm not car tires, big old truck tires. And that's who we had to go against in practice. It was kind of like that 17-year-old thing I told you guys about. But anyway, I'd like to thank everybody here that's in attendance for me to support me. You guys are awesome. And you people that didn't come to support me, I'm so sorry you had to listen to this diatribe, but that's just a little bit about my history. And thank you. I appreciate that, Thank you. Thank you. You guys have a great one.